This is Spain. Just days before this video was made, one of this country's smallest border crossings became the epicenter of a migration crisis that shook all of Europe. And this very same land once lived through a night when an entire peninsula, nearly 60 million people, was suddenly plunged into total darkness, without a single light left standing. And yet, this remains the sunniest peninsula in Europe, a place bathed in sunlight more than 300 days a year, drawing nearly 100 million visitors in a single year. Light and darkness, warmth and historical fractures. They've always existed side by side here. So what makes a country capable of being this radiant and this fragile all at once? Spain shares the Iberian Peninsula with Portugal, wrapped in more than 8,000 kilometers of coastline touching both the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. But here's a fact that surprises plenty of people. After Switzerland, Spain is the most mountainous country in Europe. Nearly 90% of Spanish territory sits above 600 meters in elevation, mountain ranges running across the country like ribs rising along the back of some enormous sleeping body. And perhaps nowhere captures that contrast better than the Sierra Nevada range in the south. Less than an hour's drive from the sun-soaked coast, you can touch snow at the peninsula's highest peak, a paradox Spain's landscape wears proudly: fire and ice, separated by nothing more than a turn of the wheel. Spain is also the sunniest country in Europe. Its Mediterranean coast averages more than 300 sunny days a year, prompting the World Health Organization to describe the climate here as one of the healthiest on the planet. But don't let that sunshine fool you. There's a popular saying that the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. But the truth is exactly the opposite. The Central Plains are actually the driest region, while the heaviest rainfall pours down on the lush northern coast. In 711, a Muslim army crossed over from North Africa and landed on the Iberian Peninsula, and in less than 5 years, nearly the entire territory had changed hands. From that moment, an entirely new world was born: Al-Andalus. In Córdoba, at the height of Muslim rule, the city became one of the most dazzling centers of knowledge in the world, a place where Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived side by side, studying philosophy, medicine, and astronomy under the same sky. But in the northwest corner of the peninsula, tucked among rugged mountains, a small Christian kingdom quietly held on. The first seed of a conflict that would stretch nearly 8 centuries. They called it the Reconquista, the Reconquest, a war so gradual that entire families were born and died without ever knowing a single day of true peace. Some years pass by quietly in history, and some years, an entire world turns on its axis in just 365 days. (1049) was exactly that kind of year for Spain. On January 2 of that year, Granada's last Muslim ruler handed the keys of the city to 2 Christian monarchs, closing out 780 years of Muslim presence on the peninsula. One chronicler of the time wrote that no one present could hold back their tears, and the Muslims of the city could not hide the grief and loss they carried. But the story of 1492 didn't end there. Just months later, those same 2 monarchs financed a voyage that would redraw the entire map of the world. Christopher Columbus's expedition to lands Europe had never known existed. And that same year, another decree was issued, expelling the entire Jewish community from Spain. All within a single year. The end of a Muslim empire, the beginning of a colonial one, and the forced exile of an entire community. As if history had decided to compress an entire century into 365 short days. From that very voyage, Spain built the first colonial empire in human history, to be described as the empire on which the sun never set. Silver flowing in from South American mines funded the most powerful armies in Europe. And in the middle of that golden age, in 1605, a novel was published, Don Quixote, later hailed as one of the greatest works of literature ever written. But no empire lasts forever. In 1898, in a war with the United States, Spain lost its last remaining colonies, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines, in the span of just a few short months. Spaniards called it the disaster, a moment when an entire nation had to look inward and ask itself, how did an empire that once ruled half the world collapse so quickly? If 1492 was the hinge that opened toward light, the 20th century brought Spain one of the darkest chapters in its history. The Spanish Civil War, fought from 1936 to 1939, tore an entire nation apart, ending in victory for General Francisco Franco. Franco ruled the country with an iron fist for nearly 4 decades, until his death in 1975. Throughout that time, regional languages, Catalan, Basque, Galician, were banned outright, as if the regime sought to smother each region's own voice, leaving only a single, uniform one behind. But the most remarkable turn came after Franco's death. Instead of the bloody transition many feared, Spain carried out one of the most peaceful democratic transitions in modern European history, with a new constitution ratified in 1978, restoring regional autonomy and leading the country into the European Union just 8 years later, in 1986. Today, Spain is organized into 17 autonomous regions, one of the most extensive systems of regional self-governance in Europe. But that same decentralization has come with tensions that have never fully settled. In 2017, Catalonia held an independence referendum that the central government refused to recognize, triggering a political crisis that dragged on for years afterward. By 2024, the government passed a controversial amnesty law, aiming to ease political tensions and pave the way for reconciliation, in the words of the European Court itself, when it upheld the law in 2025. In the Basque Country, meanwhile, the story carries a very different tone. Over 6 decades, the separatist group ETA was responsible for nearly 830 deaths. But in 2018, after years of negotiation, the organization formally disbanded, issuing a public apology. "We are truly sorry." A dark chapter came to a close, though its memory still haunts many families to this day. Picture standing in the middle of a vast olive grove in Andalusia, where more than 250 million trees stretch out to the horizon. Spain is the world's largest producer of olive oil, accounting for over 37% of global output, nearly 3 times as much as the second largest producer. The average Spaniard consumes roughly 12 liters of olive oil a year, while in many other countries, that figure barely clears half a liter. But olive oil isn't the only source of light powering this economy. In 2025, more than half of all electricity consumed across Spain came from renewable sources, wind and solar, making the country one of Europe's leading models for the clean energy transition. And no conversation about Spain's economy is complete without tourism, an industry that welcomed nearly 97 million international visitors in 2025 alone, making Spain the world's second most visited destination, trailing only France. But behind the glow of those numbers lingers an unresolved question. Can an economy built so heavily on sunshine, olive oil, and waves of tourists truly remain sustainable for generations to come? The first time in Spain, standing in front of a restaurant closed at 3 in the afternoon is genuinely confusing. Stomach growling, absolutely certain this is exactly lunchtime. But here, on time, means something entirely different. There's a famous myth about the Spanish afternoon siesta, but the truth is, only about 15 to 20% of the population actually naps daily, mostly older people in rural areas. Spaniards' average working hours are actually comparable to, and sometimes even longer than, those of Germans or the Dutch. So what actually survives from that old rhythm of life? It's lunch, stretching all the way to 2 p.m., followed by dinner that doesn't really start until 9 or 10 at night, far later than almost anywhere else in Europe. And perhaps what stays with you most isn't the food itself, but the sound of a tapas bar at night, glasses clinking together, laughter rising loudly from every corner of the room, mixed with the sharp aroma of sizzling garlic and hot olive oil drifting out from the kitchen. There's a cured meat in Spain, aged for up to 36 months, made from pigs raised entirely on wild acorns, jamón ibérico. Sliced into paper-thin, nearly translucent pieces and placed on your tongue, you feel a rich, melting fat blend with a deep, salty intensity, lingering like a low musical note that refuses to fade. And if you ask about the country's most iconic dish, the answer is almost certainly paella. But here's a little-known fact. The word paella doesn't actually refer to the dish itself. It's the name of the very pan it's cooked in. And the original paella, born in the Valencia region, didn't contain any seafood at all, contrary to popular belief, just rabbit, chicken, and beans. And if cuisine reveals the calm, measured side of the Spanish character, their festivals reveal the exact opposite: wild, loud, and at times, downright chaotic. In the town of Buñol, every last Wednesday of August, More than 100 tons of ripe tomatoes get hurled through the streets during La Tomatina, a tradition dating back to 1945. And in Pamplona, the San Fermin festival, with its famous running of the bulls, has become a global legend, thanks in no small part to the writing of Ernest Hemingway. Perhaps, to truly understand Spain, you shouldn't see it as one unified whole, but as a collection of distinct identities, all living together under one roof. In Catalonia, Catalan echoes through every street of Barcelona. In the Basque Country, Euskera, a language so ancient it has no known linguistic relatives anywhere else in the world, is still preserved like a treasure. And in Andalusia, a region deeply shaped by 700 years of Muslim rule, you can find both the driest and the wettest places in all of Spain, separated by just a few hours' drive. But behind that dazzling surface, Spaniards are facing a growing source of anxiety: housing. In many Barcelona neighborhoods, rents have surged more than 30% in just a few years, as more and more apartments get converted into short-term rentals for tourists. In April 2025, tens of thousands of people took to the streets across more than 40 cities, carrying simple but furious signs: "Bring down rent prices." By summer 2025, protests against over-tourism had spread even further. In Barcelona and on the island of Majorca, locals even sprayed tourists with water guns, holding up signs reading, "One more tourist, one less resident." And there's one day that every Spaniard will remember for the rest of their lives. On April 28, 2025, in a matter of seconds, the entire Iberian Peninsula, both Spain and Portugal, suddenly lost power completely. Nearly 60 million people, from elevators frozen mid-floor to hospitals mid-surgery, were plunged instantly into silence and darkness, lasting nearly 10 hours. One of Europe's most advanced power grids suddenly proved as fragile as a thread snapping after the slightest tug. The official investigation report, released in March 2026, concluded that the outage stemmed from a complex combination of technical factors and made clear that renewable energy itself was not the cause of the disaster, contrary to what a number of political theories had claimed. There's a piece of land sitting right on the North African coast, yet belonging to Europe, Ceuta. Here, the distance between two continents spans just a few kilometers of open water, close enough that, on a still afternoon, you could genuinely hear a ship's horn echoing across from the other shore. But in the final days of July 2026, that fragile distance became the epicenter of one of the most serious migration crises Spain has ever faced. According to estimates from Spain's Interior Ministry, roughly 49,000 people crossed into Ceuta within just 24 hours. And according to Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez himself, that figure climbed to around 60,000 over several consecutive days, more than half the enclave's entire resident population. Picture this: a piece of land no bigger than a small corner of a city, suddenly forced to absorb a number of people equal to 70% of its own population, in just a few days. Ceuta authorities recorded at least 34 deaths among those attempting to cross the water and scale the border fences to reach the territory. Local media captured footage of vehicles set ablaze at another nearby border crossing, following clashes between security forces and migrants. Faced with this situation, the Spanish government made a decision rarely seen. The military was formally deployed, alongside hundreds of riot police brought in from the mainland to help restore order in Ceuta. Prime Minister Sánchez personally visited the scene, calling what had happened an assault on territorial sovereignty and expressing the strongest possible condemnation. The head of a local police association described the situation in one short, haunting word: chaos, as thousands of people, including unaccompanied children, were left sleeping on sidewalks and in parks, wandering aimlessly through an unfamiliar city. And perhaps the hardest question here isn't found in the statistics at all, but in that invisible gap between the two shores. What drives tens of thousands of people to risk their own lives just to swim a few kilometers of open water? And what happens to a Europe long accustomed to peaceful borders, now facing waves of people arriving faster than any forecast could have prepared for? The European Union's Migration Commissioner confirmed staying in close contact with Spanish authorities, and Frontex offered to provide on-the-ground operational support. We're not going to draw conclusions for you on this complicated story, on where the line falls between humanitarian compassion and the actual capacity of a small territory, between the right to seek a new life and a sovereign nation's right to protect its borders. This remains an unfolding story, without a resolution, at the very moment this video was made. Throughout this journey, we've traveled through a country built on borders. The border between two religions that coexisted for 7 centuries. The borders between regions with their own languages and identities. And now, a physical border, where 2 continents sit just meters of seawater apart, yet separated by an entire chasm of fate. This is a country where the sun shines more than 300 days a year, yet one that also lived through a night plunged into total darkness. A place where dinner starts at 10 p.m., though that rhythm, it turns out, was never quite as lazy as people assume. And a place where, even as tens of thousands of people struggle to cross a fragile border in search of a new life, in another corner of that very same country, families are still gathered around dinner tables, letting conversations stretch late into the night, as if time simply doesn't exist. Perhaps that's the real Spain, a country that never stops existing between 2 extremes, light and darkness, warmth and unhealed fractures, always side by side, never fully separated. Thanks for joining Extreme X Travel on today's journey to Spain. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to keep exploring the world with us.